He signed the divorce papers with a smirk, convinced he was discarding a boring, ambitionless housewife who was dragging down his rising stardom. Richard thought he had stripped her of everything: the house, the car, the dignity. He walked out of that courtroom holding the hand of his mistress, laughing about how he'd left his ex-wife with nothing but the clothes on her back. But Richard made a fatal miscalculation. He didn't know that the quiet wife he just discarded wasn't unemployed. She was merely undercover. And when he walked into the most exclusive gala of the decade 3 months later, he wouldn't just regret the divorce. He would regret ever learning her real name. The rain battered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the law firm Holloway & Associates, blurring the skyline of Seattle into a smear of grey and steel. Inside the conference room, the air was so cold it felt sterile, smelling faintly of lemon polish and expensive cologne. Olivia sat on one side of the mahogany table. She wore a simple, faded beige cardigan that had seen better days, her brown hair tied back in a messy, practical bun. She looked small in the oversized leather chair, her hands folded quietly in her lap. Opposite her sat Richard "Rick" Dalton. He was the picture of new money arrogance, a sharp navy bespoke suit, a Rolex submariner, glinting under the fluorescent lights, and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Next to him sat Jessica, a woman 10 years younger than Olivia, scrolling through her phone, with bored indifference popping gum with a soft snap every few seconds. "Let's wrap this up, Olivia," Rick said, sliding the thick document across the table. "I have a merger meeting at 3. Big things happening. You wouldn't understand." Olivia looked at the papers. "The alimony agreement?" she read softly. Her voice was steady, lacking the tremble Rick had expected. "I'm being generous," Rick scoffed, leaning back and putting his arm around Jessica's chair. "I'm letting you keep the 2015 Honda, and I'm giving you a payout of $10,000. That should cover your rent for a few months while you figure out whatever it is you do." "What I do?" Olivia repeated, looking up. Her eyes were a piercing green, usually warm, but today they were like chipped flint. "Yeah, baking cookies, reading books," Jessica chimed in. Not looking up from her screen, "Rick says you were basically a live-in maid who forgot to clean." Rick chuckled. "Jessica, be nice. Olivia tried. She just, lacks vision. You know how it is, Olivia. I'm scaling up. Dalton Tech is about to break into the Fortune 500 sphere. I need a partner who fits the image. Someone who can walk a red carpet, not someone who worries about coupon clipping." He picked up a gold fountain pen and tapped it on the table. "You were fine for the struggle years, Olivia. But I've outgrown you. It's just business." It was cruel efficient and entirely untrue. Olivia hadn't just been there for the struggle years. She had funded them. When Rick was a broke coder in a garage, it was Olivia's freelance checks that paid for the servers. It was Olivia who stayed up until 400 a.m., debugging his code while he slept, telling him the next morning that he must have fixed it in a dream. She had made herself small so he could feel big. "I see," Olivia said. She picked up the pen. "So just to be clear, Richard, you want a clean break. No spousal support beyond this 10,000. No claim on my future assets, and I have no claim on yours." "Your future assets?" Rick laughed, a sharp barking sound. "Olivia, unless you win the lottery, I think I'm safe. Yes, total separation. What's mine is mine. What's yours, which is nothing, is yours. Sign here." His lawyer, Mr. Holloway, pointed to the line. Olivia didn't hesitate. She signed her name, Olivia J. Dalton. Actually, she said, pausing, can I sign with my maiden name since the divorce is effective immediately? Go ahead. Rick waved his hand dismissively. Use whatever name you want. Just sign it. She crossed out Dalton and wrote in elegant, sweeping cursive, Olivia Sterling. Rick didn't even look at the signature. He snatched the papers as soon as the pen left the page. Done. Finally. He stood up, buttoning his jacket. Good luck, Olivia. Really. Try to find a nice cashier job. Simple work for a simple life. Jessica stood up, smoothing her red dress. She leaned over the table, whispering loud enough for the lawyers to hear. Don't worry, sweetie. I'll take good care of the house. I'm thinking of turning your sewing room into a walk-in closet. Olivia stood up. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She picked up her old canvas tote bag. You do that, Jessica? Olivia said, her voice dropping an octave, losing the meek wife pitch she had perfected over 5 years. Make sure you renovate the foundation first. That house always had cracks in the structure, just like Rick. Before Rick could retort, Olivia walked out of the room. She didn't look back. As she stepped into the elevator, the facade dropped. Her shoulders straightened. Her posture shifted from slumped to regal. She pulled a phone from her tote bag. Not the cracked iPhone 8 Rick allowed her to have, but a sleek black satellite phone that looked like a piece of military hardware. She dialed a number. It's done, she said into the phone. The divorce is finalized. He signed the waiver for all future assets. A deep voice on the other end answered. Congratulations, Madam Sterling. The board has been waiting. The acquisition of the Kincaid property is on hold until your signature. Shall I bring the car around? Yes, Arthur. Pick me up around the corner. I don't want them to see the phantom. Understood. Welcome back, CEO Sterling. 3 months had passed since the divorce. Rick Dalton was stressed. Dalton Tech was bleeding money. He had promised his investors a massive partnership with Aura Global, the shadowy international conglomerate that owned everything from shipping lines to luxury hotels. But Aura Global was stonewalling him. Why haven't they responded to my emails? Rick shouted, slamming his fist on his glass desk. Jessica was sitting on the office sofa, filing her nails. Maybe they're just busy, Ricky. Buy me lunch. I saw a bracelet at Tiffany's that would cheer you up. I can't buy you lunch, Jess. If we don't get the Aura contract, we can't make payroll next month. Rick loosened his tie, sweating. I need to get in front of their CEO, but nobody knows who the CEO is. They call him or her the architect. A ghost. No photos, no interviews. His assistant, a nervous young man named Timothy, poked his head in. Mr. Dalton, you have an invitation. Not now, Timothy. It's from Aura Global, sir. Rick froze. He snatched the heavy cream-colored envelope from Timothy's hand. It was embossed with gold leaf. You are cordially invited to the Winter Solstice Charity Gala, hosted by the Sterling Foundation and Aura Global. Venue, the Grand Olympus Hall. Requirement, black tie. This is it, Rick whispered, his eyes widening. This is the entry. The Sterling Foundation is the charitable arm of Aura. If I can get into this gala, I can network with the board members. I might even meet the architect. A gala? Jessica perked up. Red carpet press. Everyone will be there, Jess. The mayor, the senators, the biggest tech moguls. If I walk in there and close a deal, Dalton Tech is saved. He looked at the invitation again. Wait, Sterling Foundation. Why does that name sound familiar? Sterling Silver, Jessica suggested. It just means money. Rick, who cares? I need a dress. Rick brushed off the feeling of déjà vu. He was too focused on the prize. He had to look successful. He had to look like a man who didn't need money, so that they would give him money. Meanwhile, across the city in a penthouse that looked down upon the clouds, Olivia stood before a mirror. She looked nothing like the woman in the beige cardigan. The messy bun was gone, replaced by glossy chestnut waves that cascaded down her back. Her skin glowed with the health of someone who slept well and ate organic. She was wearing a gown that hadn't hit the runways yet, a custom creation of deep midnight blue velvet that hugged her figure with a slit running up the leg and diamonds stitched into the neckline like fallen stars. Arthur, her butler and head of security, a man in his 60s with a scar running down his cheek, stood by the door. "The guest list is confirmed, madam," Arthur said. "Mr. Dalton has RSVP'd. He is bringing Miss Vane." Olivia adjusted a diamond earring. It was worth more than the house Rick had kicked her out of. "Excellent. Is the security team briefed?" "Yes. They are to allow him entry, but monitor him closely. He is desperate, Olivia. His financials are in ruin. He took out a predatory loan to lease a Ferrari for tonight." Olivia allowed herself a small, cold smile. He always did care more about the packaging than the product. He thinks he's walking into a networking event, Arthur. And what is he walking into? Olivia turned from the mirror. Her eyes were sharp, dangerous, and commanding. He's walking into a courtroom, but this time I'm the judge. "The board is anxious to introduce you," Arthur noted. "For 5 years you ran the company from the shadows as the architect because you didn't want your massive wealth to intimidate your husband. You dimmed your light so he could shine." "I didn't just dim it, Arthur. I turned it off. I cooked his meals, washed his socks, and listened to him explain basic economics to me while I was managing $1 billion portfolio on my bathroom breaks." Olivia walked toward the private elevator. "Tonight, the lights come back on." The Grand Olympus Hall was a palace of glass and gold. Paparazzi lined the velvet ropes, cameras flashing like lightning storms. Limousines pulled up one by one, depositing the elite of the Western world. Rick Dalton stepped out of his leased Ferrari, adjusting his tuxedo. He felt like a king. Jessica was on his arm wearing a dress that was a bit too loud, a bit too revealing, shimmering with sequins that clashed with the elegant atmosphere of the event. "Look at them," Rick whispered to Jessica. "That's the CEO of Amazon over there. And there's the governor. Smile, Jess. We belong here." They walked up the grand staircase. At the entrance, a stern woman with a tablet checked their names. "Dalton," Rick said smoothly. "Richard and guest." The woman paused, tapping her screen. She looked up, her expression unreadable. "Ah, yes, Mr. Dalton. You have been placed at table 4. "Table 4, Rick whispered to Jessica as they walked in. "Single digits. That's near the front. That means they respect me." They entered the ballroom. It was breathtaking. A live orchestra played softly on a floating platform. The centerpieces were ice sculptures of swans dripping with caviar. But as they navigated the room, Rick frowned. Table 1, 2, and 3 were front and center near the stage. But Table 4 was in the back corner, near the kitchen doors. It was a small round table with no centerpiece, just a generic candle. "What is this?" Jessica hissed, looking around. "Why are we sitting next to the waiters?" "There must be a mistake," Rick said, his face flushing red. "I'm a VIP. I'm the CEO of Dalton Tech." He grabbed a passing waiter. "Excuse me. I think there's been an error. I'm supposed to be near the front." The waiter looked at his tablet. "Mr. Dalton." "No, sir. The instructions were specific. Table 4. Rick sat down, fuming. "It's a test," he muttered. "They're testing my humility before they offer me the deal. That's how these billionaires think." Suddenly the lights dimmed. A spotlight hit the main stage. The room went silent. A man in a sharp tuxedo stepped to the microphone. It was the head of operations for Aura Global, a man Rick recognized from magazines, David Sterling. "Welcome," David said, his voice booming. "For years, the world has speculated about the leadership of our company. You know the decisions, you see the success, but you have never seen the face of the one we call the architect." Rick leaned forward. "This is it, Jess. Pay attention." "Tonight," David continued, "we mark a new era. She has returned to take her rightful place at the head of the table. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the president and CEO of Aura Global, my sister, Olivia Sterling." The heavy velvet curtains parted. Rick dropped his champagne glass. It shattered on the floor, but he didn't hear it. Walking out onto the stage, bathed in white light, radiating power and impossible beauty, was his ex-wife. The woman he had told to find a cashier job. The woman whose sewing room he was turning into a closet. Olivia stepped to the microphone. She scanned the crowd, her eyes locking instantly on the back corner near the kitchen. On him. She smiled. And for the first time in his life, Richard Dalton felt truly terrifyingly small. The applause in the Grand Olympus Hall was not polite. It was rapturous. It was the kind of applause that sounded like thunder rolling across a valley, vibrating in the chests of everyone present. Everyone, that is, except Richard Dalton. He stood frozen near the kitchen doors, his mouth slightly agape. The waiter he had just berated slipped away, smirking, leaving Rick and Jessica isolated in their confusion. "Rick!" Jessica tugged at his sleeve, her voice shrill with panic. "Rick, stop staring. It's obviously a trick. It's a doppelganger, maybe a twin sister she never told you about, that woman up there. She has posture. Olivia didn't have posture." Rick didn't answer. He couldn't. He was watching the woman on stage. His wife of 5 years, the woman who used to clip coupons for laundry detergent, command the attention of the world's most powerful people with a simple raise of her hand. Olivia leaned into the microphone. Her voice was smooth-cultured and devoid of the hesitant stammer she used to have when asking him for grocery money. "Thank you, David," Olivia said, nodding to her brother. "And thank you all for coming. For a long time, Aura Global has operated from the shadows. We believed that true power didn't need a face. But the world is changing. Transparency is the currency of the future." She paused, her eyes scanning the room again. The spotlight caught the diamonds on her collarbone, making them flare. "I have spent the last 5 years conducting a personal experiment." Olivia continued, her tone conversational, but laced with steel. "I wanted to understand the human condition from the ground up. I wanted to see how people treat you when they think you have nothing to offer them, when you are just a name on a piece of paper, a wife in the background, a liability." A ripple of nervous laughter went through the crowd, but Rick felt the blood drain from his face. She was talking about him. "I learned a valuable lesson," Olivia said, her voice dropping lower, intimate and dangerous. "I learned that loyalty is rare. I learned that some people build their empires on the backs of those they consider small, never realizing that they are standing on the shoulders of giants who are simply kneeling down to tie their shoes." "She's talking about you," Jessica hissed, realizing it for the first time. "Oh my God, Rick. She's the billionaire. And you gave her $10,000. "Shut up," Rick whispered harshly. "And now," Olivia concluded, "the kneeling is over. Aura Global is acquiring 3 new tech firms this quarter. We are cutting the dead weight. We are investing in integrity. Enjoy the evening. And remember, Never judge a book by its cover, especially if you haven't read the fine print. She stepped back from the mic. The orchestra swelled. The room erupted into chaos as billionaires and politicians surged forward, desperate to get a word with the newly revealed architect. "I have to talk to her," Rick said, snapping out of his trance. The survival instinct kicked in. He didn't feel shame yet. He felt opportunity. If Olivia was this rich, he was technically still connected to her. The divorce papers were signed, but maybe there was a loophole. Or maybe he could charm her. He had charmed her once, hadn't he? "Rick, wait," Jessica called out, but he was already pushing through the crowd. He shoved past Senator Thomas O'Leary and nearly knocked over Cynthia Roth, the oil heiress. He didn't care. He had tunnel vision. He reached the velvet rope separating the VIP section from the general floor. A massive security guard with a headset blocked his path. "Excuse me," Rick said, straightening his tie, putting on his best CEO voice. "I need to get through. I'm family. That's my ex-wife. She'll want to see me." The guard looked down at him. "Name? Richard Dalton, CEO of Dalton Tech." The guard touched his earpiece. "I have a Richard Dalton at the perimeter, requesting access." He paused, listening to a voice on the other end. Rick smirked at the people watching him. "It's fine," he told a curious onlooker. "Just a little misunderstanding. We're very close." The guard looked back at Rick. "Denied." "What?" Rick laughed nervously. "Ask again. Tell her it's Rick. Tell her I have the instruction was specific, sir." The guard said, his voice flat. Miss Sterling said, and I quote, "The help stays in the back. Please return to table 4, or you will be escorted out." The people around them giggled. Rick felt his face burn with a heat so intense he thought he might catch fire. The help. She had used his own words against him. He turned around, humiliated, only to see Jessica flirting with a waiter, trying to get a free refill on champagne. His empire was crumbling, and he was standing in the ruins wearing a tuxedo he couldn't afford. But Richard Dalton was a narcissist, and narcissists don't accept defeat. They get angry. An hour later, Rick found his opportunity. He had been watching Olivia like a hawk. She had been circulating the room flanked by Arthur and David, shaking hands with people Rick had only seen on the cover of Forbes. But eventually she stepped away toward the private corridor, leading to the executive suites and the restrooms. Rick signaled Jessica to stay put. She was busy taking selfies with a confused celebrity anyway, and slipped past a distracted waiter. He ducked under a velvet rope and sprinted down the hallway. "Olivia!" She stopped. She didn't jump or startle. She simply stopped walking and turned around slowly, the midnight blue velvet of her dress swirling around her ankles. Arthur, who was a few steps ahead, turned as well, his hand moving toward the inside of his jacket. Olivia raised a hand to stop Arthur. "It's fine, Arthur. I expected this." Rick jogged up to her, breathing hard. Now that he was close, the transformation was even more jarring. Her skin was flawless, her makeup professional. She smelled of jasmine and cold, hard cash. "Olivia," Rick panted, stopping a few feet away. "What is this? Is this some kind of sick joke?" "Hello, Richard," she said. Her voice was cool like water running over ice. "You're trespassing in the executive wing. The bathrooms for general admission are in the lobby." "Cut the crap." Rick stepped closer, pointing a finger at her. "You played me for 5 years. You pretended to be nobody. You let me pay the mortgage. You let me stress about bills while you were sitting on a gold mine. That's fraud, Olivia." Olivia laughed. It wasn't a happy sound. Fraud Richard, I paid off your student loans in 2021. I funneled money into your first startup through a shell company called Blue Heron Ventures because no bank would touch you. I didn't let you stress. I protected you from the reality of your own mediocrity. You were Blue Heron. Rick staggered back. That investor had saved him from bankruptcy. I wanted a partner, Rick, Olivia said, stepping forward, forcing him to step back. I didn't want a gold digger. My father, William Sterling, warned me. He said men are intimidated by power. So I hid it. I wanted to see if you loved me. Olivia the person, not Olivia the heiress. I did love you. Rick lied, his eyes darting around. No. Olivia shook her head. You loved having a fan. You loved having a maid. And the moment you got a taste of success I bought for you, you decided I wasn't shiny enough to be your trophy anymore. You traded me for a model who thinks the capital of France is Europe. Jessica is... She's supportive, Rick stammered. Jessica is a line item on your expense report, Olivia corrected. And speaking of expenses, you signed the divorce agreement. Section 8, paragraph 3, both parties waive all rights to future discovery of assets, hidden, omitted, or undisclosed prior to the marriage. Rick's stomach dropped. I didn't read that part. I know. Olivia smiled, a shark-like baring of teeth. You were too busy looking at Jessica's legs. You signed away your right to sue me, Rick. You signed away billions because you were in a rush to get to your merger meeting. I can still fight this, Rick threatened, though his voice wavered. I'll go to the press. I'll tell them you're a liar. I'll tell them you deceived your husband. Go ahead. Olivia shrugged. The press is currently eating out of my hand. They love a story about a strong woman escaping a toxic, ungrateful husband. In fact, Vanity Fair is doing a spread on me next week. The headline is, The Phoenix Rises. Do you want to be the villain in that story, Rick? Because right now you're just the footnote. Rick clenched his fists. I have a meeting with Aura Global next week, about the partnership. Olivia raised an eyebrow. Do you? Yes, and when I pitch my tech, your board will overrule you. My technology is undeniable. Olivia looked at him with genuine pity. Oh, Richard, you still don't get it. I am the board. But by all means, come to the meeting. I love a good comedy. She turned on her heel. Arthur, remove him. If he resists, break his wrist. The left one. He needs the right one to sign his bankruptcy papers later. Arthur stepped forward, cracking his knuckles. Rick didn't wait. He turned and fled back down the hallway, the sound of Olivia's laughter chasing him into the dark. The following Monday morning, the headquarters of Aura Global was buzzing with activity. The building was a glass monolith in the center of the financial district, towering over everything else. Rick Dalton stood in the lobby, wearing his second-best suit. He had returned the tuxedo. He was sweating. Jessica had refused to come, claiming she had a migraine after reading the tweets mocking Rick's placement at Table 4. I have a 900 a.m. pitch, Rick told the receptionist. Dalton Tech. 3rd floor, conference room A, the receptionist said without looking up. Rick felt a surge of hope. 3rd floor. That wasn't the executive penthouse. Maybe Olivia wasn't involved in this meeting. Maybe he was meeting with middle management. If he could just convince the engineers, they could push the deal through before Olivia noticed. He entered the elevator, practicing his pitch. Synergy, scalability, AI integration. He had the buzzwords down. The doors opened. He walked into conference room A. It was empty except for a long glass table. At the far end, sitting alone with a cup of tea, was Olivia. She wasn't wearing a gown today. She was wearing a white power suit, sharp enough to cut glass. She looked like a modern-day deity of judgment. "Sit," she said, not looking up from her iPad. Rick swallowed. Where are the other investors?" "The technical team." "I'm the only one you need to convince, Richard," she said. "Please, dazzle me. You have 5 minutes." Rick fumbled with his laptop. He plugged it in his hands, shaking. The projector flickered to life. "Okay." Rick started, his voice cracking. "So Dalton Tech has developed a proprietary algorithm for supply chain optimization. We call it the Nexus." He clicked the slide. It showed a complex graph. "It reduces latency by 14%, Rick said, gaining a little confidence. "It's revolutionary." "It's outdated," Olivia interrupted. Rick froze. "Excuse me." Olivia tapped her iPad. The screen behind him changed. It showed a side-by-side comparison of Rick's code and another code. "This is the Nexus," Olivia pointed to the left. "And this is Project Hermes, which Aura Global developed in-house 6 months ago. Our code reduces latency by 40%, and we didn't use open-source libraries that are vulnerable to hacking, which yours are." Rick stared at the screen. How did you get my code?" "You used the home Wi-Fi, Rick," Olivia said simply. "I'm the architect. Remember, I built the secure network you were gaming on. I saw everything. Every line of code, every sloppy shortcut. So you're not interested?" Rick slumped. "Interested." Olivia stood up and walked slowly toward him. "Richard, I didn't bring you here to buy your company. Your company is worthless. The technology is derivative, and the CEO is a liability." "Then why am I here?" Rick whispered. "Because I own your debt," Olivia said. She dropped a file folder on the table. It landed with a heavy thud. "What? The predatory loan you took out for the Ferrari, and the bridge loan you took to cover payroll last month? The lender was Centurion Capital." Olivia leaned in close. "Centurion is a subsidiary of Aura Global." Rick opened the folder. His eyes widened in horror. The numbers were staggering. The interest rates were astronomical. "You are in default as of this morning," Olivia said cheerfully. "I have called in the loan." "I can't pay this," Rick gasped. "It's $3 million. "I know," Olivia said, "which means legally I can seize the collateral." "The collateral?" Rick looked confused. "I put up the company assets." "And your personal assets," Olivia corrected. "Read the fine print, Rick. You always skip the fine print. You put up your apartment, your car, and, oh yes, your intellectual property rights." Rick fell back into the chair. "You're taking my company." "I'm taking everything," Olivia said, her voice hard as diamond. "I'm liquidating Dalton Tech. I'm firing the staff. Don't worry, I'll rehire the competent ones like Timothy. He's a good kid. But you're finished." "You can't do this," Rick screamed, jumping up. "I was your husband." "And I was your boring wife," Olivia shouted back the first time she had raised her voice. "I was the woman you threw away like garbage. You wanted to be a big shot, Rick. You wanted to play in the big leagues. Well, welcome to the big leagues. In this world, you pay your debts." She pressed a button on the intercom. "Security, escort Mr. Dalton out and strip his building pass. He doesn't work here. He doesn't work anywhere." 2 guards entered. They grabbed Rick by the arms. Olivia, please." Rick begged his arrogance completely gone, replaced by the pathetic whining of a child. "I'll take you back. We can fix this. I still love you." Olivia watched him being dragged away. She didn't blink. "Arthur," she said into the air. "Yes, madam." Arthur stepped out from a side door. "Send a crew to his apartment. I want the locks changed by noon. And tell Jessica she has 1 hour to vacate the premises. If she leaves anything behind, donate it to charity. Actually burn it." "Very good, madame." Olivia looked out the window at the city below. She had won. But the game wasn't quite over yet. There was one more loose end. Jessica wasn't the type to go quietly, and Rick, now desperate and cornered, was about to make one final stupid mistake. The Sunset Motel was located on the outskirts of the city, nestled between a used car lot and a drainage ditch. It was the kind of place where the neon sign buzzed like a dying insect, and the carpet smelled of stale cigarettes and regret. Room 104 was cramped. Richard Dalton sat on the edge of the sagging mattress, staring at the peeling wallpaper. His designer suit was wrinkled, stained with rain, and he had loosened his tie hours ago. Jessica was pacing the small space, frantically shoving clothes into her suitcase. "This is ridiculous, Rick!" she screamed, throwing a bottle of expensive perfume into her bag. "No hot water, no room service. I can't live like this. My Instagram followers think I'm in Bali. If they find out I'm in a roadside motel off the interstate, I'm ruined." "Jessica, please." Rick rubbed his temples. "It's temporary, just until I liquidate some assets, until I get access to my offshore accounts." "You don't have offshore accounts, Rick." Jessica spun around, her eyes wild. "I heard the lawyer. She froze everything. You have nothing. Which means we have nothing." She zipped up the bag with a vicious yank. "I'm going to my sister's in Portland. Don't call me until you're rich again." "You can't leave me." Rick stood up, panic seizing his chest. "We're a team. We're victims here, Olivia. She planned this. She's a monster." Jessica paused at the door, her hand on the knob. She looked at Rick, really looked at him, and saw a desperate, broken man. But then a thought flickered behind her eyes. A cunning, malicious spark. She let go of the doorknob. "You're right," she said slowly. "She is a monster. And right now the world loves her. They think she's this saintly billionaire who rose from the ashes." "So?" Rick slumped back onto the bed. "So?" Jessica walked back toward him, a cruel smile playing on her lips. "Public figures have one weakness, Rick. Their reputation. Olivia Sterling is trying to launch a global brand based on integrity and transparency, right? Yeah, that's her whole shtick. What happens if the world finds out that the Saint of Seattle is actually a mentally unstable abuser who stole her husband's intellectual property to build her empire?" Rick blinked. "But that's not true." "It doesn't have to be true, Ricky." Jessica sat next to him, stroking his arm. "It just has to be loud. We go to the press, we sell the story, The Secret Life of Olivia Sterling. We tell them she was controlling, that she manipulated you, that she stole the code for Aura Global from your laptop while you were sleeping." Rick's eyes widened. The lie tasted sweet. It was a way to regain power. It was a way to hurt her. We could sue for defamation, or better yet, settle out of court. She'd pay millions just to make us shut up. "Exactly." Jessica grinned. "We don't need to win a lawsuit. We just need to threaten her image. She's hosting that massive Women in Tech Summit on Friday. Live broadcast. Millions of viewers." Rick sat up straighter. The gears were turning. "I know a journalist, Gavin Reed. He writes for the Daily Inquisitor. He hates the Sterling family. He's been trying to find dirt on them for years. Call him, Jessica ordered, pulling Rick's phone from his pocket. Tell him we have the scoop of the century. Tell him we want an exclusive interview aired right before her speech. Rick took the phone. His thumb hovered over the screen. For a second, he remembered Olivia making him soup when he had the flu. He remembered her staying up late to help him study for his business exams. He remembered the look in her eyes in the courtroom. But then he looked at the water-stained ceiling of the motel room. He looked at his ruined life. And he pushed the memory of her kindness down into the dark, replacing it with hate. "Hello, Gavin," Rick said into the phone, his voice trembling with feigned emotion. "It's Rick Dalton. You're going to want to hear this. I'm ready to tell the truth about Olivia Sterling." Wednesday and Thursday were a whirlwind. Rick and Jessica met Gavin Reed in a dark booth at a diner. Gavin was a thin, weasel-faced man who recorded everything on 3 separate devices. He ate up their lies like candy. "She locked me in the house," Rick lied, squeezing out a tear. "She wouldn't let me see my friends. She tracked my phone. And the code. Project Hermes. That was mine. I called it the Nexus. She copied it onto a flash drive and erased my backups. She threatened to kill him if he left," Jessica added, holding Rick's hand dramatically. "I was terrified for his safety. That's why we ran. That's why we're in hiding." Gavin scribbled furiously. "This is gold. Absolute gold. The architect is a thief and a tyrant. This will destroy her stock price overnight." "When do we run it?" Rick asked. "Friday night," Gavin said, his eyes gleaming. "I've got a press pass for the summit. I'm going to confront her during the Q&A. We'll live stream your interview simultaneously. It will be a pincer attack. She won't know what hit her." Rick smiled. For the first time in days, he felt powerful. He wasn't playing defense anymore. He was on the attack. The Friday night Women in Tech Summit was the event of the season. The auditorium was packed with 3,000 people, and millions more were watching via live stream. The stage was decorated with futuristic silver pillars and massive screens displaying the Aura Global logo. Olivia stood backstage adjusting her microphone. She wore a suit of sharp crimson silk, a color of power, of blood, and of victory. "Madam," Arthur whispered, stepping out of the shadows. "Our intelligence confirms it. Gavin Reed is in the 3rd row. He has a direct feed set up to his network, and Mr. Dalton and Miss Vane are currently in a studio downtown, ready to broadcast their confession." Olivia didn't look worried. She checked her watch. "Right on schedule. Are you sure you want to do this live?" Arthur asked, a rare note of concern in his voice. "We could shut down their feed. We could have lawyers serve them with a gag order right now." "No," Olivia said, turning to face him. Her green eyes were icy calm. "If you cut out a man's tongue, you don't prove him a liar. You only tell the world that you fear what he might say. I don't fear Richard Dalton. I want him to speak. I want him to scream. And then I want the world to see him choke on his own words." "As you wish." Arthur bowed. Olivia walked onto the stage. The applause was deafening. She gave her speech a brilliant, inspiring talk about ethical leadership and the importance of truth. She held the audience in the palm of her hand. Then came the Q&A. "I'll take questions now," Olivia said, shielding her eyes against the spotlight. Gavin Reed shot up from the 3rd row like a jack-in-the-box. He didn't wait to be called on. He grabbed a runner's microphone. "Miss Sterling," Gavin shouted, his voice echoing through the hall. "Gavin Reed, Daily Inquisitor. You talk about ethics, but isn't it true that your entire empire is built on stolen intellectual property? Isn't it true that you abused your ex-husband, Richard Dalton, and stole his code to create Aura Global? A collective gasp went through the room. The cameras swiveled to Gavin. We are currently airing an interview with Mr. Dalton. Gavin continued, looking smugly at the camera. He claims he is the true architect, and you are nothing but a fraud who destroyed his life. On the massive screens behind Olivia, the feed changed. It wasn't Olivia's presentation anymore. It was the live stream of Rick and Jessica sitting in a studio, looking tearful and broken. She ruined me, the video Rick sobbed. She stole my mind. She stole my work. The audience began to murmur. People were pulling out their phones. The stock price of Aura Global ticked down in real time. Olivia stood perfectly still on stage. She didn't interrupt. She watched the video of her ex-husband lying to the world. She waited until he finished his sentence. Then she laughed. It wasn't a nervous laugh. It was a clear, ringing sound of genuine amusement. She tapped her microphone. Mr. Reed, Olivia said, her voice cutting through the tension. Thank you for bringing this up. I was hoping someone would ask about the origins of my code. She pulled a small remote from her pocket. You see, Olivia addressed the audience, I anticipated that a man with Richard's creative relationship with the truth might try something like this. So let's look at the evidence, shall we? She clicked the remote. The video of Rick on the big screen vanished. It was replaced by a different video. It was grainy black and white footage. It was dated 5 years ago. It showed a younger Rick Dalton sitting in a gaming chair wearing headphones, screaming at a computer screen. Audio played, I can't figure this stupid code out. It keeps crashing. Olivia, come fix this, in the video. Olivia, wearing her old beige cardigan, walked into the frame. She sat down, pushed Rick aside, and began typing furiously. It's a syntax error in the root directory, Rick, the video Olivia said. I told you you have to bypass the firewall using a recursive algorithm. Here, I wrote it for you. Whatever, the video Rick grunted, taking the keyboard back. Just make sure my name is in the comments. I don't want the investors knowing my wife did the heavy lifting. The audience gasped again, louder this time. That, Olivia said calmly, is dated October 2020. But let's fast forward to 3 days ago. Click. The screen changed. It was footage from the Sunset Motel. Rick and Jessica's faces appeared on the giant screen, clear as day. What happens if the world finds out that the Saint of Seattle is actually a mentally unstable abuser? Jessica's voice rang out. But that's not true, Rick's voice replied. It doesn't have to be true, Ricky. It just has to be loud. The silence in the auditorium was absolute. You could hear a pin drop. Gavin Reed turned pale. He lowered the microphone, looking for an exit. Olivia stepped forward to the edge of the stage. You see, Richard forgot one thing. The Sunset Motel was bought by a subsidiary of Aura Global 6 months ago. We were planning to bulldoze it to build a community center. The security cameras in the rooms, they were active. And because the motel is private property owned by my company, there is no expectation of privacy for squatters who didn't pay their bill. She looked directly into the camera lens, speaking to the live feed where Rick was currently watching. Checkmate, Richard. Back in the studio, Rick watched the screen in horror. The producer cut the feed, but it was too late. The livestream comments were scrolling so fast, they were a blur. Sansul Also Richter Dalton. I say, liar, must team. Olivia, must jail him. Jessica stared at the monitor. You idiot, she hissed at Rick. You said the motel was safe. You said it was off the grid. I didn't know, Rick stammered. His phone began to ring. It wasn't the press. It was the police. Extortion, Olivia's voice boomed from the TV screen in the studio. Defamation, filing a false police report, and conspiracy to commit fraud. My lawyers have already sent the evidence to the district attorney. Officers should be arriving at the studio right about now. On cue, the studio doors burst open. Rick looked at Jessica. We can run. Jessica stood up. She looked at the police, then back at Rick. Officer, Jessica pointed a manicured finger at Rick. He made me do it. I was a hostage. He forced me to lie. Rick's jaw dropped. Jess, he's crazy. Jessica screamed, playing the victim one last time. Please get him away from me. As the handcuffs clicked around Rick's wrists. He looked at the TV screen one last time. Olivia was standing on stage receiving a standing ovation. She looked like a queen. And he finally realized that he had never been the player in this game. He had been the pawn. 6 months later. The Seattle winter was unforgiving. The wind whipped off the Puget Sound, cutting through layers of clothing like a knife. At the Daily Grind, a busy coffee shop downtown, the lunch rush was in full swing. 1 caramel macchiato extra foam, a customer shouted. Coming right up, the barista mumbled. He wiped his hands on a dirty apron. His name tag was crooked. It read Rick. Rick Dalton looked 10 years older. His hair was thinning his face gaunt. He lived in a shared studio apartment with 3 college students who partied until 4 a.m. His wages were garnished to pay the legal fees and the massive settlement he owed Olivia, a debt he would be paying off for the rest of his life. Jessica had vanished. The last he heard, she had testified against him in exchange for probation and was now dating a 70-year-old real estate tycoon in Florida. She hadn't sent a card. Hey, buddy, I'm waiting, the customer snapped. Sorry, sir, Rick said, handing over the cup. The bell above the door jingled. The shop went strangely quiet. Rick looked up. Walking in, flanked by 2 bodyguards, was a woman in a camel hair coat and dark sunglasses. She pulled the glasses off. It was Olivia. She wasn't there to mock him. She probably didn't even know he worked there. She was just getting coffee. Beside her stood a man tall with kind eyes and a strong jawline. His name was Alexander, a neurosurgeon who ran the pediatric wing of the hospital Olivia funded. He held her hand like it was something precious, protecting her from the crowd, guiding her gently. Rick froze behind the espresso machine. He wanted to hide. He wanted to sink into the floor. Olivia approached the counter. She looked at the menu board, then her eyes drifted down. They locked onto Rick. For a moment, time stopped. Rick waited for the anger. He waited for the gloating. He waited for her to tell her boyfriend, "Look, that's the loser I used to be married to." But Olivia did none of those things. She looked at him with zero recognition. Her eyes swept over him as if he were part of the machinery, as if he were just a texture in the background of her life. She didn't see Richard Dalton, the tech CEO. She didn't see Rick, the ex-husband. She just saw a barista. 2 black coffees, please, she said politely. Olivia, Rick whispered, his voice cracking. She didn't hear him, or she chose not to. She turned to Alexander, laughing at something he whispered in her ear. She looked happy. Not the triumphant, sharp happiness of the courtroom, but a soft, genuine peace. Rick made the coffees. His hands shook. He placed them on the counter. "Have a nice day," he choked out. Olivia took the cups. "Thank you." She dropped a $20 bill into the tip jar. "Keep the change," she said. She turned and walked out the door into the waiting black car, into her bright, limitless future. Rick stood there, staring at the $20. It was more than he made in an hour. It was charity. "Hey, table 4 needs wiping," the manager yelled from the back. Rick Dalton, the man who thought he was a king, grabbed a rag. "On it," he said. He walked over to table 4, the same number he had been assigned at the Gala, and began to scrub. And that is the ultimate checkmate. Rick spent his whole life chasing status, only to end up wiping tables while Olivia found the one thing money can't buy: genuine peace. It's a brutal reminder. Be careful who you step on while climbing the ladder, because they might be the one holding it up. What did you think of Jessica turning on Rick at the end? Did you feel sorry for him in the coffee shop, or did he deserve that final moment of invisibility? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this story of hidden identities and karmic justice, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell, so you're the first to hear next week's story about a billionaire boss who goes undercover as a janitor. Thanks for watching.